Before we jump in, though, I'll go into some of the things that I've worked on over at Travelocity. So most recently, in the past 6 or 7 months, really focused in on mobile, but previous to that, worked with external partners, CPC, as well as Meta, and getting hotel information and pricing information out to all of our partners, developing new technologies around that. And then previous to that, worked over within social commerce, launched a new review system with Bazaar Voice, and extended the ability to build a community around asking questions for specific hotels. We found that was actually quite helpful, and I was very happy about that experience. In terms of personal, I feel very happy that I'm able to work over at Travelocity. You know, when I was going through high school, like I was stoked about backpacking and being able to weave those types of dreams for people, these travel experiences, and being a part of that, and actually making money off of that, in some sense. Is actually a very fantastic thing, and I feel very blessed that I have the ability to work within the hospitality industry, and I highly suggest that you take a look at it if given the opportunity. In terms of other things, I do have a little sports attention deficit disorder going on. This past weekend, I was actually out in New Orleans for the Red Dress Run. Not sure if there are any hashers out in the audience, but essentially, it's just a fantastic time where you essentially dress up in a red dress and run around the streets of New Orleans. And there's a reason why there's a question mark there for that picture. I didn't want to show off that fancy dress that I had going on. I was actually out last night with a few of the folks from Compare Metrics, and I really wanted to highlight this because I had a very biased opinion on what to expect for Philadelphia. I think this is a really fantastic city, but I was under the impression that this was a real hateful city. This is the city that throws snowballs at Santa, for crying out loud, right? And of course, that was somebody from DC who informed me of that. But you know, I've had an absolutely fantastic time, and I think that WBR, you guys did a really great job in choosing this city. It's been very hospitable, and the food here is absolutely amazing. So, a little shout out. So now we'll jump into the responsive web, and it's definitely been an adventure for us over at Travelocity. I think that you heard the gentleman from Fatheads talk about his experience and, you know, the 6 months of preparation, lots of digging deep to really understand how they're going to implement responsive. We're going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to tell you about the relationships between, you know, myself and the other members of the team. So hopefully that you can go back to your teams and learn from some of the opportunities and experiences that we actually had. So I promise lots of drama. There is a happy ending, and there will definitely be sequels to this experience. So here's the boring outline, right? It's, you know, what is responsive? I think, actually, let's get a show of hands. Does anybody at this point, the last frickin' presentation for the day, on the last day, does anybody not know what responsive is? I have gift cards. Okay, so I won't beat that to death. You know, we'll talk about why we chose responsive over at Travelocity, how we implemented it, some of the lessons that we learned in going through it, and then talked about, you know, like what did we actually, what were we actually able to accomplish in rolling out responsive. So that's talking about the goods and the bads. So this is my little plug for Starbucks. I do have Starbucks cards. So, you know, what is responsive, right? Essentially, it's a way to scale the presentation of a mobile device from smartphone all the way up to your tablets. And so why did we pick responsive over at Travelocity? You know, there was a lot of rhetoric. We were starting to look into this about last year, September-ish area. There's a lot of rhetoric within the user experience community, that's my background, that talked about the benefits of responsive. And there was a lot of rhetoric within the mobile community, apparently still to this day, on responsive and how great it is. But for me, I'm a doubting Thomas internally, and I just, whenever I hear rhetoric, you know, all these great things about a certain solution, I automatically doubt. I'm like, this got to be garbage. It's kind of like the combination of social, mobile, these words that, the kind of buzzwords, the things that come up. I automatically have a kind of this rejection feeling. So for me, I went over into the data, and I went over into our Google Analytics set, and I looked at the number of different screen resolutions which we were logging over at Travelocity, and I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Okay, clearly you can see the number one. That's definitely an iPhone. It's out there rocking it. And then you have a long tail that exists. But what you see in the bottom right-hand corner is a very large number. So we got 1 through 10 in terms of the matrix that we see. But that number, I don't think that I'm going to be able to get it to expand, but that's 3,500. So 3,500 different screen resolutions have hit Travelocity. This was back in September of last year. So there was a little bit of a puckering moment for me at that point, and I felt quite confident that going forward, I knew that responsive was going to be something that was going to add a lot of benefit to Travelocity and our customers. And obviously, fear is a great motivator, right? Certainly. And so we move forward. Oh, we got a little love there. Okay. And we move forward with responsive. And I want to give a little bit of a shout out to the other ideology within mobile, which is adaptive. Are there many adaptive philosophers here in the audience? Bam, right there. All right. There is a gift card coming your way, my friend. And I remember a face, let me tell you what. All right, anybody else? You could even lie at this point. I've got a bunch of them. Bam, all right. Whoa, hey, AV's got there. Sweet. All right, so, adaptive essentially tells us, and any of the philosophers can correct me if they wish. This can be a discussion and less of a lecture. But what adaptive says is, hey, look, you should be building an experience per the device category, right? So the device category being a feature phone, a smartphone, a tablet, a phablet, those should all have their own experiences. To me, another pucker moment. That sounds expensive. That sounds really, really expensive. But the customers certainly would appreciate that as an offering. So for me, what I think is adaptive is the right way of going about it. But we do have to have a cost balance to how we approach things. And I say, just like Bo Jackson, man, why don't we do both? Why don't we do both responsive as well as adaptive? So the way that we are approaching it over at Travelocity is we are doing responsive from smartphone up to phablet because we see similar timeline tasks as well as tasks being accomplished within that set. And then we allow iPad or the larger tablets to go over to the desktop. And I think ideally what I would like to see happen is that we create this responsive site between smartphone, phablet, and then create another responsive site, using essentially an adaptive segment and create an experience that exists for large tablets all the way up to desktop. I think that's the natural goal that we are going to be moving toward. And, and what I would say to you is just essentially look at your data set, watch your customers, and see what they're doing, seeing if there is much of a variance between the different device types, and then, proceed as you need to. So, of course, I've got to give a shout out to the team, right? The product manager, got to give a big old thumbs up. So we had a core team of 3 folks that really worked on our responsive strategy over at Travelocity. So, we had a user experience representative, we've got HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then we pulled in a number of other folks that helped supplement the team by coming in from Android development over to mobile web because it's Java-based, and so the skill sets were quite similar. So those of you product managers out there that want to steal resources from other teams, please go on ahead and look to your Android team to do so. And I'll definitely tell you that in the beginning, there were quite a bit of silos. So I approached this at the beginning of November and started really looking into responsive in terms of what we were going to do. We have a number of veterans on the team, and so you can imagine that December was quite a wash. And what ended up happening is myself and the user experience representative within the group, we worked very closely to hammer out the requirements and work out all of the designs, getting them tested, taking them out to usability, iterating, and changing it up. So what ends up happening is our engineers come back and we slam these golden tablets down on the desk and we're like, guys, it's done. It's done. All you have to do is throw this together, throw the code together. We should be done in a couple of months. As you can imagine, that didn't work out that well, right? There's discussion around what's going to work, what is responsive in terms of document structure. The devil is in the details when it comes to responsive, and so we got a little bit of feedback, let's just say, in what we delivered over. But essentially what we did is we looked at, in fact, if you look over at the tablet design, you can see the instant feedback that's coming in from the development team. Like the tablet design itself is not a responsive. It does not meld well with the smartphone. So for those of you who have been here throughout the day and previous days, you probably know that that's not a collapsible situation over there on the tablet. So what we ended up doing is we tried to create this pixel-perfect experience, and we were running into all of these issues and having all these problems. And really this is the first lesson of today and my experience is just keep that constant communication up with your team. Make sure that not only are you engaging with the user experience group, but also making sure that you have development in there as well. So development's really cranking, trying to do what they can to create this responsive experience, and they're really doing it to pixel perfection. But they're getting very frustrated. There's all sorts of issues around maintaining the artifact library in terms of all of your photos. Like, okay, now we need to create a photo for gradients for phone in portrait, phone in landscape, tablet in portrait, tablet in landscape, and now you got to multiply that by 2 because you've got retina, you got non-retina, so it just gets crazy. The guys were just like, boom, forget about it. This is just absolutely terrible. We're fed up. And thankfully, the user experience group just said, look, guys, we trust you. There's a circle of trust, and you guys really need to drive this yourselves. We provide the feedback in terms of artifacts like comps, and so now it's up to you to just really run with it. And at the beginning, I'll tell you that was not received very well. They felt like user experience was like, see ya, we're done. But what it actually did is it empowered them and made them feel great about just driving it themselves. And so they took liberties, and they grew confidence in how they were developing the code. So it was actually a fantastic, fantastic thing, and it was definitely an inflection point. Another inflection point, I don't think you'll be able to see it, but there was a breakthrough email that came out. So it's breakthrough. The developers had said, I finally figured this out. So as I mentioned, there's an extensive library of artifacts. There are gradients in all sorts of shapes and sizes and just getting all sorts of crazy. And what we found, and I think that this will be of value to everyone here, is that if you can reduce the amount of these image libraries by converting everything to icons, and then simply adjusting the icons using CSS. So that took an image library of, was like 143, I believe, down to 19 icons. So now you are delivering a faster experience because page times are decreasing in terms of in terms of load, but you're also, keeping the development staff, out of the nut house because they're having to manage all these different artifacts. So it's very, very powerful. That's the one thing from a development standpoint that I would love for you guys to take away is really using icons and figuring out how to reduce the images that exist within your web pages. And so what ended up happening is the first 3 months, we have paths that are very unique within Travelocity. We've got air, hotel, and car. So the hotel path itself took 3 months to really move through and understand and figure out. But once we were able to utilize, harness the ability of using icons and starting to reuse code across the paths, the first 3 months were obviously storming. You can see we got some Thunderbolt action going on over there. But in flights, right, that's down to 2 months for HTML and CSS. And car is just 1 month. I mean, it was absolutely amazing to see, and I'm really happy to be able to see this progression within the group and this confidence that's being built. It was absolutely fantastic. And so this is what we end up with. So this is our search page. This is the base page of the hotel path. And you can see in standard responsive measure, right, it just kind of expands and then contracts back up. Kind of like, what is that, Saturday Night Skit or something where she's like, whoop, gets expand, contract. I don't know. And so we expanded the same thing out to flights, right? So flights is the same deal. And we're able, you can see that we're reusing pieces of the code, right? Always reuse, do not waste. And the same thing for cars. By the way, this isn't public knowledge just yet, so flights and cars isn't out just yet, so just kind of keep that underneath your hat. But we're really excited, and we think that that's going to be out in the next 2 months or so, so super stoked about that. In terms of metrics, it's all about keeping it simple, right? Keeping it simple. So for us, it's all about the money. So increased bookings, we want to watch time on page, and make sure that our exit rates are within reason comparatively to the previous site. And obviously reduce the amount of errors that we ran into. We ran into a lot of session-based errors because we have a dated path, right? For travel, you have to input your dates. And so the page that you get, the information that exists on the page is very time sensitive, so we run into a lot of session exception errors. Sorry, you got a product guy here, so I'm going to jump into some nerdy details, right? So. But anyway, as I was planning this redesign out in my initiative model, I was really concerned that, on some level, we're going to take a hit. And that's always scary, right? Anytime you do a redesign, I know that everybody voted for change in 2008, but, anytime that you put together a redesign, you can expect to see a drop. And it was surprising that the gentleman from Fathead also had mentioned that he tried to or the 4Seed folks that were guiding him had mentioned that there was going to be a drop in his experience, but he didn't see that either. So thankfully, that was the same experience that we had, actually. Bookings have definitely increased between 6 and 8%. That's for iPhone and Android, respectively. Time on page actually increased 50%. I'm always suspicious of time on page. From a usability standpoint, I always think of time on task is like a lower number, but as you move into time on page, from a traffic standpoint, it's actually a good thing. So it's always been very confusing to me. And in terms of exit rates, our exit rates have dropped on nearly all pages. So there's definitely one page that we are isolating and will continue to change. And we're really excited about trying to figure out, what exactly is the reasoning for the problems that we're finding on that page. And the exception errors, super awesome. We're able to trap and handle exception errors in a better way this time around than we were in the previous. So I think that's definitely helped increase the transactions over on our site. And so the lessons learned, generally, it's going to take longer than you think. User experience is going to take longer than you think. You're going to need to bake in time as the gentleman from Fathead said, right, look at all of the different form factors that you are going to see, and also understand that these media queries for all the different devices that you have, it's going to be like an endless, endless struggle to keep up with all the different devices that continually come out and continually challenge you from a development standpoint. And certainly, when you're doing the forecasting, for those of you who aren't using Agile, I would really encourage you to take a look at using story points for your development cycles that will make you feel much more confident in setting up release dates and communicating those release dates to the executive management. In terms of analytics and screen sizes, definitely make sure that you isolate what you are going to support out of the box. You can run into situations where you just continually, it's like whack-a-mole, like boom, okay, we've got the Kindle, boom, we've got the iPhone, but these things just keep on coming up. So isolate, what you're going to support out of the box. Look at analytics. Pick your top 10 to 15 screen sizes, and just make sure that you feel confident in the screens that you are going to support. And don't be afraid to tell that person that's testing using Internet Explorer, one of your fellow colleagues that's testing Internet Explorer on your mobile site, that, look, I'm sorry if someone here is from Microsoft, but Internet Explorer is not a mobile browser, all right? Sorry about that. It's not a WebKit-based browser. So again, I would really focus in on icons instead of imagery. That will definitely help in terms of page load times, and your customers will thank you, certainly. Ensure that your KPIs and analytics are solid. Whenever you're doing a redesign, make sure that you have all the tracking, and ensure that you have all of the stakeholder information up front, because it's no fun when you get into a room and someone asks you a question and they say, are you tracking that? And you're not, right? It's very uncomfortable. So that would be my suggestion to everyone. And of course, in the end, right, we're all colleagues. We're all going through this at the same time. So certainly reach out. There are lots of resources. Certainly WBR has put together a number of folks that are certainly welcome to help everybody. So I am not undifferent from everybody else, right? So please reach out if you have any questions about responsive. And again, I do have Starbucks for those of you who are sleeping now. Thanks.
Any questions for Joshua? And you can't just ask him for a gift card.
Right? Get these gift cards, guys. Had them for 2 years.
I'm not going to ask for a gift card, but hopefully it's gift card worthy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned converting images to icons, and I was trying to read the email up there, and I just want to make sure I'm following. Did you mean that you turned your PSDs into vector illustrations, and then you're using CSS to manipulate
Absolutely.
the vector? And so how many browsers are able to render vector drawings natively right now? I mean, certainly WebKit, I guess, but are you worried about anything past the phablet the other direction with vector, or I'm curious how that works.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for us, because we have taken that kind of adaptive, responsive, mixed approach, we have not been concerned about that. So the core browsers that we focus in are WebKit based, and because that's the segment of smartphone to a phablet. Yeah, but that's a great question, and something I will definitely stew on tonight.
I was wondering, as far as content, how did you take away content when you broke it down?
Did we take away content?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, in one sense, are you saying that we dropped stuff that we didn't think that was interesting to customers? So like create a minimum product? Is that what you mean?
Basically, yeah. So your mobile, everything that was on full screen didn't really make the cut down to mobile.
I will say that that is correct. So I just was overseeing the responsive redesign. There was already a mobile site that existed previously. And so, yes, it is a dumbed down version of the desktop site. And, we came into that, using analytics, understanding what people were using, what they weren't using on the desktop, and then just trimmed that way. Now, since then, I'm on the Opinion Lab. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Opinion Lab, but it's a feedback mechanism. So I get emails directly from customers that have points of opportunity for us, as well as graces. But essentially what we do is, based on that feedback, we prioritize the features that exist on the desktop that aren't reflective, and then we throw those into mobile. So, yes, it's a dumbed-down version.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So modular versus scalable. We went for scalable. And the reason is that because of the paths that we decided to go after, we don't really need to worry about it being as modular, because the variance and what the page is going to look like isn't going to be that significant. Does that make sense?
How many breakpoints did you design for?
Originally, I believe we targeted specific devices. So we looked at GA and said, look, iPhone, Nexus 7, Kindle Fire, Samsung 3G, and 3G or 4G. And so the breakpoints were associated with those devices. So you have 6 breakpoints. I think I got in trouble because I did that, so I can't.
No, you're not in trouble yet. A lot of stakeholders, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How did you handle prototyping, doing wireframing with the responsive framework versus typically where you could do a quick prototype in Axure or something where you can use a flat image? How have you handled those challenges with your stakeholders?
Well, that's a good question. The way that we originally, that was kind of weird to have that written back in my head in terms of a speaker. The way that we approached it originally is, we worked within Photoshop and just did flat comps. And then we moved into Axure, and then that's what we took out to do usability testing with. We have a homegrown lab over at Sabre that we use, as well as we went out to Starbucks. In terms of communicating up to management, I try to, it's that balance of, do you want to do low fidelity and them say, why isn't this here, why isn't that there, or do high fidelity and then create expectations that may or may not be there. So I think in general, I try to move up into the high fidelity portion, just because they get to see the interaction, and they can make comments as well. It wasn't that much of a concern that they're going to beat the crap out of us for a specific color scheme or anything like that. We don't have that problem, because for the most part, being a reseller, and the approach that we've taken to mobile at this point has been a media slim approach, and so we haven't had those major issues yet. And that's why you probably said I'm not in trouble yet. Hey.
Hi. I'm sorry if I'm asking the question that you already covered because I came a little bit late. So when I saw your site, I saw there's a lot of ads that you guys have. So as you're going mobile, what are your thoughts on monetization? Because I'm assuming all those ad spaces that you guys have on your main site and maybe on a tablet, you plan to monetize. And I kind of checked out your mobile thing. There were no ads or anything. So what are your thoughts on how people are going to monetize when you go mobile?
That's a fantastic question. We use the I word in mobile, integrated. And so the way that I would like to see mobile develop is having more integrated ads as opposed to blatant display ads. So I think that we've got an opportunity, right? Specifically within Travelocity, there are all sorts of ways that you can sell things, right? You don't have to create a specific slot for selling, because really customers become ad blind anyway. It's not really that big of a deal. And it doesn't add value to the customer, and it doesn't add value to the supplier of the ad. And so what I would like to see is figuring out more integrated ways of throwing ads into the experience. Like, for example, we have a product which allows customers the ability to go and shop in different OTAs, right? So the hotels.com, the Expedias, the bookings, right? We offer that experience. And on the desktop, that is a standard display ad. But really what it should be is, as you're moving through the experience, picking out a hotel, if there's uncertainty, we know people shop around, I shop around, then allow them the ability to go in with a good user experience and shop. So that would be my suggestion, is just to create an integrated and relevant ad experience within mobile, because otherwise you're just going to piss people off.
And we're just about out of time.
Perfect.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.